Let's get going. So, hey everybody, welcome to Missing Links with it's just Brock and I today. Brock, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah. How about yourself?
I am great, and I am excited for today's topic, Eigenlayer. So, Eigenlayer is an interesting concept, and it's not necessarily a new concept. So, there was an idea floating around Bitcoin back in the day about using its consensus or its security and translating it or lending it to other blockchains. Um, and it was too early, and there were some holes in that because there is a bunch of miners, and they're incentivized to mine Bitcoin because they could actually they get rewarded, but they actually have something to lose there in terms of their infrastructure costs. Whereas if you if you lend that out to another chain, they don't lose their Bitcoin, and so the
Yeah.
incentives are they're different. And so we'll get into that. But on a very basic level, Brock, why don't you just kind of give us the broad idea of Eigenlayer?
Yeah. So it's specific to Ethereum, and the idea is Ethereum is now proof of stake, meaning it's secured by node operators, validators, pledging 32 ETH. They locked that away in their node, uh, and that 32 ETH is representative of their stake. So that's where the proof of stake comes in. And so uh, the network, the Ethereum network, gets secured by all these validators that sign blocks or build blocks, sign blocks, and put all the transactions out there. And it's done by these validators with staked assets. So Eigenlayer is this concept of restaking, if you will. So that 32 ETH is just sitting there. It's not doing anything. You could argue you're getting a yield on it because as a validator, you're getting block rewards. So you get money by investing the 32 ETH in a kind of roundabout way. But for all intents and purposes, that 32 ETH is just sitting there. So Eigenlayer is a way to take that ETH and use it again to secure a secondary layer on top of Ethereum. So it's already locked, and you basically say, I'm going to, like, the primary pledge is to Ethereum, but while it's sitting there, I'm going to also lend it out to Eigenlayer to help secure other contracts within the Ethereum ecosystem.
That is a great explanation. So the reason that this is interesting or important is because if you basically what Ethereum does is it gives you the if you're going to create an application or a DApp, you can utilize Ethereum's security layer for basically transactions, and that's it. You can't use it really for securing things like data. That's why Chainlink
Sure.
has their own mechanism to do that. So in theory, Eigenlayer would give, I don't know, dApps that are more so data plays the ability to leverage an additional security layer or the Ethereum layer beyond just transactions. Is that correct, or is that
I don't know if it's wrong. I'd say my understanding is that it's still transaction based. It's just you can direct funds. So when you stake Ethereum in the Ethereum network, you're securing the whole network and you have no choice over what you secure, just network wide. With the Eigenlayer, you end up with almost this marketplace, if you will, where you can say, I want to restake my funds and allocate them for these purposes. So it might be that I want to allocate them for a new data layer on top of Ethereum. It might be I want to support this Oracle. Um, Whatever it is, you can you have more levers to pull and point your funds different places.
okay? So that makes sense. So now, what were dApps doing before? Well, Eigenlayer, I don't even know if it's that's one thing I didn't read yet. Is it? I don't even think it's deployed yet. Um, I think it's still either it's not conceptual, but maybe it's in some kind of a testing phase.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on that either. Like, I can't tell if it's testing on mainnet or if, like, what I couldn't quite tell what the status was. Yeah, but it seems to be out there in some form.
So, what were? like what did Chainlink have to build um, to get around this? And I'm trying to think of other examples beyond Chainlink. I don't know. I mean, I know there's other oracles. I'm trying to think of other data plays beyond just, a typical DApp that's using Ethereum's security layer for anything other than just transactions.
Yeah, so Chainlink is obviously a great example. You can even look at projects like the Graph potentially as a comparison, and then you have the whole host of like Ethereum like side chains or new L1s that have been created, each with their own tokens. And that's really kind of at the core of what Eigenlayer is solving for. Is if you want to create an application or an ecosystem, um, pretty much your only option to date has been you have to create the entire ecosystem. So you need to create the consensus mechanism, which means you have to create the tokenomics, which also means you need some level of scale to even get this thing off the ground. So the barrier to entry to creating anything more complicated than a simple smart contract is really difficult.
Yeah, because then I mean, yeah, you're right. Because then you need people to spin up this infrastructure on their
Mm-hmm.
own. They need to create nodes, and that's okay. That's what Chainlink did. So that makes sense. Um, and actually, those are because we've had to think about that at different times, and even for like indexing co, as we were talking about scaling horizontally. Now that's a bit different. We weren't doing that because we necessarily like with the eigenlayer. I think we would still do something like that. Um, but
Well,
with Eigenlayer, it's
I was going to say it's still that incentivization layer. So yeah, say we were doing something like the Graph where they've decentralized their infrastructure, and you like pay for access and pay for curating data feeds. They had to introduce their own node infrastructure and their own Graph token to facilitate that. In the world of Eigenlayer, that could all be done, like those nodes could be incentivized with Ethereum directly via Eigenlayer. So it's people that are already locking up their staked ETH could then also support, say, the Graph or Chainlink or whatever it might be.
they just get this additional choice as a staker. Hey, I want to go beyond just Ethereum because I want to get paid in GRT tokens as well, right?
I think it can support that, but even more so, like it removes the need for GRT.
Okay. All right. But if like if I'm staking, so I'm staking my 32 ETH, and I would say 9 times out of 10 people are going through one of these staking services. Maybe not 9 out of 10. Maybe it's like a little bit lower than that. But I think a lot of people go through like Staked Fish or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and so they are taking the 32 ETH, they're staking it, you're earning, 3 or 4% return. So if Staked Fish now adds the graph, that is one thing that I'm unclear about. How is the extra revenue or the like how am I paid more on my 32 ETH and in what form?
Yeah, so that this is I was a little fuzzy on some of this, but my understanding is, let's say it's Chainlink. That's I guess a more direct comparison. If Chainlink wanted to be integrated into Eigenlayer, it's not so much that the link token gets added to Eigenlayer, but the Chainlink infrastructure now supports getting paid or validating itself via Ethereum. So like Ether itself. So you kind of remove that need for a secondary token. And so when you're staking, you can re-lend your staked ETH into, say, this Chainlink ecosystem that's built on top of Eigenlayer. And so now you're validating Chainlink using the exact same Ether that you are using to validate Ethereum as a whole. And so then like rewards are also paid out back in Ether. So instead of getting rewards in like a link token, you get the rewards in Ether, same as you do when you're validating the whole network.
Got it. So I understand how you can rehypothecate your ETH, but I'm what I could not find And what I've really been digging on is where is that extra, like, where is the income coming from? Where is the extra
Yeah.
vig? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm getting paid, if I put my money into a bank, I'm earning 4%. But if that bank then lends that money to another bank, like if I've got a deposit, that's basically a loan to the bank. And then that if that bank lends it to another bank, then they earn a return on that as well. But I don't increase my interest with my original
Right.
bank.
So in that metaphor, you as the individual staking your ETH are the bank. And so it's not that you get to choose where you lend it. And so different ecosystems and Eigenlayer can say, hey, we'll give you 4% back if you help stake your ETH here. Or maybe it's 10% because it's a little riskier. But the different ecosystems get to define that. And then you can choose what you want to put your staked Ether in.
But is there some kind of like an economic model on the eigenlayer or some kind of tokenomic that picks up that additional fee through transactions or something so that those, because if I stake my 32 ETH on ETH, like I trust the Ethereum network, but if I branch out into Chainlink is not as advanced as Ethereum. It's not as decentralized, maybe, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So maybe there's going to be more risk depending on which other projects you support
right.
potentially. So,
Yeah,
so
that's where Eigenlayer itself as a Eigenlayer is an infrastructure piece. There's not a native tokenomic play there, and intentionally so. They just kind of help facilitate other projects like Chainlink being able to implement tokenomics using the state ether that's already out there.
so that's where I struggle because they raised a bunch of money. So how do you say to investors, look, we'll take a bunch of money from you. Like I wonder how they're gonna
Sure.
repay investors. I wonder what the
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe the layer itself takes some small cut of whatever the ecosystem tokenomics are, but my understanding is they're not. They're just facilitating things.
okay. Hmm. And it makes sense. Like as I was going through this, I was originally thinking, okay, why wouldn't this just be baked into the EVM? But it makes sense that this is additional infrastructure on top because it's not necessary to the
Right.
EVM. This is just like a nice feature.
Yeah, it's interesting. It like almost hypothetically, you could see it taking away some of the need for app specific chains. That's kind of what it replaces. There's still the whole world of gas and block space to deal with, but if you ignore that, Eigenlayer at least makes it possible to develop app like chains directly on top of ETH.
Yeah. So in theory, it's almost like I don't want to say that the era of new dApps with tokens is over, but it's going to precipitously drop. Well, maybe not actually, because you're really just eliminating the need for nodes. You're not necessarily. I mean, you can still have a token with an app. I mean, if there's a
Yeah,
I don't know, like airplane rewards or
sure. Yeah.
things like that, like I'm sure that that stuff will still tokenize, but if you need to like scale, it's kind of like putting things into the cloud, like taking advantage of the cloud, like you're creating this
Hmm.
like Web3 virtual cloud network.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to stand up a brand new node infrastructure and deploy a token just to secure it. That whole world is starting to go away.
So how does this work into layer twos? Does it affect layer twos or is it really indifferent to them because they're basically they've got, well, I guess they're just creating a chain on top of chains. So you're just having basically apps now build on layer twos, and the layer twos. I guess it really doesn't, right? It doesn't really affect any
Yeah,
of that infrastructure.
yeah. I think they're two separate paths to two slightly different solutions or two slightly different problems. Because with L2s, um, You could argue that the main play there is a throughput solution. So they're solving scaling on Ethereum. Eigenlayer doesn't help with scaling; it just helps with more complex applications on top of Ethereum itself.
Okay. Um, and then, do you see any security issues?
So in this process, you as an individual are staking your ETH, and then instead of marking yourself as the address that can reclaim that ETH, you're setting it to Eigenlayer. So Eigenlayer now has control over your staked ETH. So you can imagine a hypothetical where Eigenlayer gets exploited and anything that's been restaked is now pulled out of the Ethereum network itself. It would be a pretty, I don't know, pretty hyperbolic uh, case, but I don't know. I think that would be my only concern.
Well, that's a big concern. So I didn't realize that. So I thought Eigenlayer it's not a separate chain, is it? I thought it would. So when you stake today, it lives you 32 ETH going to a smart contract, right?
Yes. But part of
Okay,
that
so it's on the
process
Ethereum network.
is, yeah, so it's on the Ethereum network, but part of that process is you when you add your ETH to that contract, you declare who can withdraw it or who can control it.
And that's usually the staker.
Right. But so with Eigenlayer, in order for their network to operate, you have to basically, when you stake your ETH, you make it so that Eigenlayer itself can then pull out your ETH and use it to restake.
In a contract that they wrote?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, so it still lives on the Ethereum chain, but it gives them sort of root access to the contract.
Yeah, it just gives them access. Yeah, it gives them indirect access to your ETH. So if there was like a flaw in the Eigenlayer contract that like could be maliciously exploited to withdraw the ETH from the ETH staking contract, and you'd have this chain of events where a whole bunch of ETH gets removed from the staking pool.
I haven't staked ETH yet. I haven't played around with that. And so I should have dug deeper into that before this, but walk me through that a little bit. So I've used things like I've done it on Polkadot, but on Polkadot, so Polkadot's really interesting. Like it's I did it directly though. I didn't. No, I didn't. You choose the staker, and there's like staked fish and the guys that were bought from Coinbase, those Buffalo.
Oh, Bison Trails. Yeah.
Yeah, Bison Trails. So I staked through them for a little while. So basically, they were taking my dot and they were staking it on the Polkadot chain, and so for them to, but there's a pool. So let's go back to Ethereum. So in Ethereum, is it one pool where all of that ETH is being staked?
There's kind of two big flavors of staking, if you will, on Ethereum. One is the home validator. So you run your own Ethereum node and you stake directly with it. So you have full control over both the hardware and theoretically the software there. Then there's this other realm that you were alluding to earlier where you go to like a staking pool. So you have like a Rocket Pool or a Lido, whatever it might be. And you give them your Ethereum, and they underneath are running multiple Ethereum nodes and basically redistribute your funds across them.
Okay. Into are they deploying the contracts for those staked funds to be stored in, or is that?
Yes. Yep.
So everybody's writing different contracts. I'm sure there's a standard there, but
I don't know that there is. Like the Ethereum staking generally, there's a process. I think there's a singular contract that manages that. But these pool mechanisms, those are all unique proprietary contracts to the companies that run the pools.
I'm understanding Eigenlayer differently than I researched it, because what are they? What is the actual technology then that they've created?
So I don't know what all the like tangible pieces are. I was with you. The like their website's a little lean, and it was tough to find good information. But
They're opening a door.
so they're building infrastructure, which I understand to be essentially like a suite of contracts on Ethereum, and probably some node system behind that, that yeah helps facilitate more ecosystem applications.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to do this again in the future as more information comes out because I thought I thought it was a series of smart contracts. I understand that you're not trusting. I mean, you're not trusting Eigenlayer, the entity behind it, but you are trusting. I get it. They're writing the contracts. So if there's like a reentry bug or something crazy like that, then everything could be drained. But I would imagine that they're going to break up. Well, I mean that's what I'm struggling with right now. I'm trying to understand, like, is it these pools of money? I know they're across different nodes. So if I was going to hack and I was going to drain, I can only drain one node at a time, right? Like I can't. It would be very difficult to spread that attack out on multiple nodes. I guess unless it was the same contract that was on these nodes, then I could, right?
Right, right. I think that's kind of that was the risk I was speaking to, like with Eigenlayer. If everybody's like exposing their funds to the same centralized contract, then that's a single point of failure theoretically.
Is it Eigen or Egan? Are you? Do you have
I
an
don't know.
accent? Is that
I don't
Oregon?
know. I don't know if it's Egan. I don't know.
It seems to be a theme in crypto with names.
I know. Yeah, we can't keep things simple.
GIF, GIF. You know, it's GIF. Don't say GIF. GIF is a peanut butter.
No, Jiffy is a peanut butter.
So the founder of this guy is pretty interesting. So he's an academic, actually in well, I was going to say your territory, you're Oregon, but he's up in Seattle. Um, Sharam Kanan. That's not how you say it, I'm sure, but I've listened to him on a bunch of podcasts. He sounds like a pretty smart guy, and I got to say, look, it makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things that like I didn't really think about, and then when I heard the idea, I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember people talking about this with Bitcoin, and it made a lot of sense until it didn't. Until somebody pointed out the incentive structure where, hey, look, you know, these guys, if I create a blockchain and these guys are securing it, the Bitcoin network is, and they've got nothing to lose, then they've got really no vested interest in anything I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to protect, you know, their home base first, and maybe they'll look at me as an afterthought. This, I understand in theory that there's additional incentives in terms of the return that you can make on your original investment. So you're weighing that additional risk, but I still can't understand where that additional return is coming from. So there's got to be some kind of something that is generating an extra point, or you know, to get people like me or you or anybody else to take that risk.
Well, that's where I don't think Eigenlayer is. They're not trying to dictate that, is my understanding. They're just the infrastructure that enables the other application or the business to declare what the incentives are.
Yeah, so that makes sense, right? So like back to the graph, you know, they've got a foundation, so they could just pull out of their reserves and, well, actually, no, they're existing. So they've already done this exercise. So why would they use this? Or maybe they will just to add additional security, but it's more so for people that are spinning up a new project, and they would just basically allocate a percentage of their token base to incentivizing people in this way instead of some other way.
Yeah, it shortcuts the whole thing. So if you're spinning up a new project and you need a consensus layer, um, you don't have to build your own. You don't have to invent all the tokenomics, and you don't have to get to that scale to make it work. You can just build on top of Eigenlayer, and you've got all the infrastructure right there, incentivization, the consensus, all of that baked in, and you just build what's unique about your business or your project.
Okay. And the other thing I was going to ask you about, so do you remember what was it called? Liquid staking? Was that?
Yeah.
Um, this is so. Here it is. So liquid staking, I have in my notes. It gives the investor a token representing their stake value. Restaking it basically allows them to stake their ether for securing other protocols. So how is this different? Is this different, or is this just an advancement of that idea? I know I'm
It's
putting you on the
a
spot here.
but
So
my
so if you don't
understanding
know, no worries.
no, my understanding is liquid staking. The idea is you can like if you stake ether, the ether is just sitting there. So if you go through say Rocket Pool, you give Rocket Pool your 32 ETH. Rocket Pool is going to give you, I think it's R ETH is the token symbol. So they give you like 32 R ETH back. You now have this representation of your staked ETH that you could go give back to Rocket Pool at any time to pull out your funds, or you can go take that and maybe you want to like sell it on a secondary market. And the idea there is this liquid ETH that you have is just a proxy for the staked ETH. So that staked ETH is still earning rewards. Those may or may not go back to your wallet even while it's staked. Not sure on that part. Um, but like by going to Rocket Pool, you're probably getting a slightly lower reward than if you're like staking at home. And so to offset some of that, they give you this liquidity. You can take that liquidity and do something else with it. Um, so like I was staking on Coinbase, and so I didn't have 32 ETH on there, but I had like one ETH. I was like, I want that ETH back. You can't actually withdraw staked ETH right now, but I can convert it to CB ETH. I get that out, and then I can go sell that on a secondary market to then get one actual ether back. And so there's like some slippage there. You're going to lose maybe 1%, but it just gives you the ability to kind of get out without having to actually unlock what's staked behind it all.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right. I was gonna ask you some questions. I've got other things like EigenDA. I don't know how deep you got into this stuff. So there's like a EigenDA is like a
But
decentralized data availability layer.
yeah, I could not find any good information on that. I was trying.
Okay, and then they've got like things around MEV,
Yep.
and also I went down like the bridging rabbit hole and how this could potentially solve some of the issues with bridging. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's enough. It's a lot of speculation, and I don't think it's really worth talking about here because
Well,
who
on
knows
the
until we see this thing in action.
on the bridging front, though, the whole idea is eigenlayers taking place of all these app chains, right? And so if you have an app chain and you've deployed your own node infrastructure and you have your own ecosystem, if you want to work with Ethereum, you have to bridge over. So that bridge is usually like a central point of failure. So if instead you're just building on top of Eigenlayer, there is no bridge. You don't have that point of failure. And so that's their argument there. It just eliminates that entire set of problems.
Yeah, app chains have never made sense to me, but just because look, blockchains are so infrastructure and cost intensive that
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't. It's just too much. That's where I think Eigenlayer, if it's done right, could be successful because it's offering sort of security as a service is a it eliminates just what you just said, the need for app chains. It just
Yep.
streamlines things, right? It's like it just makes things a lot easier. um
Mm-hmm.
all right. Well, look, let's leave it there. I think we're going to come back to this though because I there's a couple of things that I have that I want to talk about, but they get into the nitty gritty of some technical things, and so I first want to give you a heads up on that. But
Yep.
also, we want to be able to find data and let this stuff evolve a little bit and see it in action. So I think that gives us sort of a broad bird's eye view of what Eigenlayer is. And yeah, we'll revisit it again in the future. So is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I mean, if anyone's listening and can correct us on all the things we said wrong, please do. I'm sure we were off on quite a bit there, but
It's probably mostly me, but you gave a great synopsis on this. So I had a different understanding of this in my head, but it was only because I should have dug a little deeper into staking as a whole. But
hmm.
yeah, you did a great job explaining this.
Yeah, it's the short answer is liquid staking gives you tokens that you can go sell for ETH, and then Eigenlayer is the infrastructure to kind of eliminate the need for those secondary tokens.
All right, well we'll leave it at that. So until next time, we we'll see you then.